Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates. This will be episode 41, I think, or 42. Hard to keep track, and I don't have my moderator, Glenn, in chat waiting and telling me what episode number it is, so God only knows at this point in time, I guess. But bottom line is, I wanted to go live tonight to end the week off Friday to let you know that this very likely, though it's Friday, the end of the week, it's very likely just the beginning when it comes to this Trump administration and the Iran war. And that is to say, it's just the beginning of the end, because I'm hypothesizing on this channel that this war is going to be coming to an end pretty quickly, it seems. We'll see what happens. And of course, under the fog of war, with the truth always being the first casualty and blatant propaganda being pushed out from all sides, Israel, Iran, and America, it's hard to get a full read on exactly what's going to be happening. But the bottom line is, I think the writing is on the wall at this point, especially with all of the breaking news that we received today, or at least I saw today, that I'm going to be relaying to everybody in the audience potentially watching. And that is, of course, the military moves that have been made by the Pentagon, posted by CENTCOM, and announced even by President Donald Trump as well. So that's what's on the agenda for today. I usually have a very large notepad. I don't script anything that I say, but I write down some talking points. Today, it's the small notepad because though there's not a lot to talk about from a surface level aspect where there's like tons of different topics to discuss, there is a lot of detail to discuss when it comes to my predictions for what we'll see over the weekend, in all honesty, and that is, of course, based off of patterns that we've seen within this Trump administration already as it is. And that, of course, is the fact that Trump, because he's a market man, he's a Wall Street guy at the end of the day, he views the stock market, erroneously so, like I've stated in the past, as the economy. And so it does bother him, and it should bother him when the stock market tanks and goes down. Which actually, that reminds me, I meant to actually pull that up before I went live. I want to see how the Dow Jones is doing today. Okay, yeah, so it is down. It's down again, yeah. And the Dow Jones has been dropping all month long. It's down almost 6% since last month, down to 46,558. Wonder what the Nasdaq's at. Yeah, down as well. So it's all down, and that's predictable. The Nasdaq's down almost 2% to 22,105, and then how's the S&P doing? S&P. I should have pulled this up before I went live. I forgot. Okay, S&P 500 also down. So not surprised. Down pretty much 3% over the past month, and then of course it's obviously the last 2 weeks really is what you're seeing. S&P 500 down to 66.32. Then real fast, oil. Let's see what our oil futures at. Oil futures are up. Okay, they're up to 97.20, up 60% the past month. Jeez. Okay, and of course that started spiking February 27th. No surprise there. And then finally Brent crude oil, because that's more of a global scale thing. Brent crude is up more. It closed at 101 last time I reported on it here on this channel. Brent crude is now up to 103.86 right now. That seems to be what it closed at for today, actually. Up 55. Actually, it just went up 103. Yeah. Up 55.9% the past month. So the things that you don't want up, like oil, are up. The things that you don't want down, like the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, and the S&P 500, they're all down. This war, of course, has been predictably terrible for our economy. And so the pressure is on Trump. And that leads me to my first point that I wanted to discuss here, of course, the historical pattern that we're seeing out of this Trump administration so far when it comes to overseas engagements and foreign entanglements, not just with war, by the way, but oftentimes even with the implementation of his tariffs and when he's had to decide to raise tariffs on certain countries. He does what's actually objectively smart, and that is, of course, wait until the weekend to announce such decisions. Because if you do so on a Wednesday, for instance, then you run the risk of the markets ending much lower when it comes to the stock and Wall Street, or oil in this case, spiking up based off of human emotion, which is what it is. So you don't want that to happen on Friday. Now, nothing's going to stop the stock market from tanking right now and from oil spiking right now, but you don't want to worsen it. And so Trump does wait until the weekend oftentimes for these things, for taking action. And we saw this just 2 weeks ago at this point now on Saturday. I wound up going live at 4 a.m. 2 Saturdays ago now, I think it was, to announce that we had struck Iran, because this is what this administration knows to do. If you do this if you strike Iran on a Wednesday, the markets panic, and then Friday closes horrible. So that's the first thing I want to get out there, is that what we should expect this weekend, quite honestly, especially when I lay into the details of this, are more strikes in Iran. I think it's going to get heavy this weekend, is my prediction, based off of the news that I see and what I'm saying right now to everybody here. Of course, that is, of course, Trump waits till the weekend to perform military operations deliberately. The market can't really react to it till Monday. So we should expect that at this point. Hey, our boots going to Iran, says the weight, the weights, whatever, the weights experience. Yeah, so boots, it looks like they are. We're not sure just yet. The MAGA, and by the way, I always preface this when I say this because it upsets the audience otherwise. Unfortunately nowadays, MAGA is just as sensitive as liberals. I voted for Trump. I'm a fiscal and social conservative, but these are MAGA cheerleaders at the end of the day, and they are part of a cult at this point. And so the copium is getting more and more rich on social media right now when it comes to that, because, and I'm going to cover that later, but yes, there's a even higher chance now, something that I predicted would happen on this channel many episodes ago, about a week ago, that boots on the ground would be imminent in the region. Experience. Boots on the ground is not a good. I agree. It's political poison, actually. And the Republicans seem to be speed running defeat in the midterms. But the problem is we're in there now. And I'm going to cover that a little bit later. But yeah, there was news about several thousand Marines being deployed to Iran. Technically, it's not boots on the ground yet. I'll break that down in a little bit. But I wanted to get back to the main point here first and foremost and lead up to that, because that is where I'm going with this, of course. But Trump... we're on day 14 concluding with Israel and Iran and the U.S. being involved in this Middle East war now. Trump waits until the weekend. So expect military action this weekend and expect it to get hard and to go heavy. So that's first and foremost. And what I wanted to address, honestly, was the fact that I saw some footage today, posted by CENTCOM, actually, if I remember it correctly. CENTCOM on X is where I saw it. You should follow me on X, by the way, if you haven't already. I have the link to my X account posted. It's pinned in the chat below. Also, subscribe to American Advocates and like this stream if you'd be so kind. Double tap your phone screen or hit the thumbs up button. It really helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. So CENTCOM posted B2 bombers being fired up, right? So we have now footage of the Freedom Dorito is what they're always called, right? And we have footage of the Freedom Doritos, the B2 stealth bombers, being fired up and taking off is pretty much what's happening. And that can only, of course, mean one thing. But it actually means even more than what people are probably going to say. I'm going to tie this in with basically what I feel like is the strategy unfolding here with the Trump administration and how significant it is that the B-2 bombers have launched once again. Because it's not going to be just simply to do another bombing run. There's going to be, in my opinion, a narrative crafted by this administration and probably echoed by Bibi Netanyahu in Israel as well after the B-2 bombers bomb Iran, if they bomb Iran. Of course, like I stated before, no prediction can be fully accurate with the fog of war in play, with the truth always being the first casualty, and with propaganda being spewed out from all sides. Iran is spewing out propaganda, Israel is spewing out propaganda, and so is America. But I am here to try to make the most sense of it and to give predictions that I'll stand corrected on if I'm wrong, and give my analysis of it. So the B-2 bombers have launched, right? That's the most important thing to focus on right now, and why I'm saying Trump always waits to take military action on the weekends, because the markets are closed and the markets can't react until Monday. So I think within the next 12 to 24 hours, it's most likely we will see B-2 bombers, or, if they're taking off now, it actually takes them longer to get there, I think, than 12 hours, though. But I think it's likely that we see a ramp up of military strikes in Iran, military action in Iran in the next 12 to 24 hours, even if it doesn't come from those B-2 bombers just yet. That could be on Sunday, perhaps, when it comes to Eastern Standard Time, depending on how long it takes for them to get there and arrive over Iran. But this will happen, and this will be the administration's way, I think, in all honesty, of starting the process of wrapping up and concluding the Iran war. And I'm going to tell you why. And I think it's because, in all honesty, we're seeing this not unfolding in the way that this administration wanted. And I've already gone into details about that. I think this administration went in more on the naive side. I think Trump decided to treat this war as if he's gambling at a poker table. Yes, we do have the winning hand, but like I've stated in past episodes, they were not, for whatever reason, taking into account the fact that Iran is a zealous country. They are religious diehards, ideological about their religion. And the regime is dedicated to its cause, even if it is a wicked, evil regime. And so you have to always take into account for the fact that a war of resources is different from a religious holy war. And religious wars are way more intense. You have way more dedicated people to the cause because they believe they're serving their God and serving a higher purpose. So they're willing to fight more to the death. Whereas resources, a war of resources is just, it's not personal. It's just about basically winning the wars to expand your nation at the expense of another one, oftentimes resulting in you taking that nation captive. But also, a lot of times there's benevolency involved there. You keep those people alive. This is not going to be viewed that way with the Islamic regime. They know they're facing pretty much extinction because Israel wills it and America backs Israel. So they're going to fight to the death, and they're going to fight by any means necessary. I don't, and as a result of that, my poker analogy essentially is, yes, Trump has the winning hand. We by far have a superior military. None can stand up to the United States when it comes to that. No one. No individual country can come close to being able to defeat us militarily speaking. We are far superior. But the bottom line is they weren't, for whatever reason, it seems, taking into account the fact that Iran doesn't care that you have the winning hand. They'll light the whole table on fire and change the game entirely. And we have kind of seen that with Iran lately, this time around, that is, as opposed to last summer, for instance, where we struck them. They knew that we were pressured to strike them by Israel again. And so they called ahead and they said, hey, we can't be perceived as weak. This military base in Qatar, I think it was, it's empty anyway, but we're calling to make sure it's empty. We're going to send missiles there. We just got to at least hit you back. That's literally how that went pretty much. Much different that time around. And everything was over with. We took out Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo, their nuclear bases. Trump claimed total annihilation and complete victory, which I think he's going to gear up to do once again with those B2's being fired up, and I'll tie that all in a second. But that's how that played out. This time around, we saw it much different. Iran is going hellfire and scorched earth. And so what they did this time around was actually, again, objectively smart on their part. They decided to go the scorched earth route and attack all of their neighbors, not just react and attack Israel at Tel Aviv, which is predictable, or our U.S. Navy, which is predictable and was certainly expected. They did that, but then they decided to launch missiles at the United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia, at Qatar, Doha base. They decided to, I think Dubai has been placed at risk as well. And the meaning behind this, even though they're more, they call them their friends or neighbors, the purpose of that was to apply outside diplomatic pressure on this Trump administration, because Trump just went on a Middle East tour last year inside of a lot of those countries, shaking hands with them, smiling with them, making deals with them. And there's been investments made into the United States in the billions of dollars range with these countries. I actually think, was it the Arabs? I believe they made a $1 trillion deal here in the United States. So Trump essentially in America has sort of been purchased by all areas of the Middle East at this point, is really how I view it. And so as a result of that, Iran striking their neighbors after we struck them first puts the pressure on the Trump administration by essentially making it known that this is happening because of America's actions. And at the end of the day, it's Iran's fault. The strategy is it's not a benevolent strategy, it's a wicked one. But in war, all is fair. And so the bottom line is there is going to be pressure now. And this will change the perception of the United States in the eyes of a lot of different countries. And we've seen that play out now. Poland is talking about acquiring nuclear power. South Korea is talking about it as well. Other countries are joining in, saying other nuclear countries are saying we need to ramp up our nuclear production and our nuclear warheads. We need to increase that because they see the writing on the wall, or at least they're beginning to fearmonger a little bit more when it comes to how this U.S. and Israel alliance operates at this point. And so, this is like working against the main goal here, which was originally at least stated to us by this administration, to ensure Iran never developed nuclear power, or in the form of course, nuclear warheads. But it's quite honestly achieving the opposite effect and goal when it comes to the global goal of, eliminating some of those nuclear warheads. More countries are now pledging to ramp that up. Poland wants to work with France. South Korea is a little concerned. We pulled out our one of our THAAD missile systems. We pulled that out from their region that was it was eyeing up China. We pulled out defense from the Indo-Pacific in order to advance Israel's cause in the Middle East. And in my opinion, this is very reckless global strategy on America's part. And it once again does reinforce the perception that's growing across the world, and certainly in America with the youth, that is, that we serve Israel and we serve them first and foremost above all else, including ourselves and other nations. And I think that's never been more clear. And so this whole war now, as a result of all of that, has really applied a lot of pressure on the United States from a military standpoint and from an administration standpoint, as well as a party standpoint, because the midterms are this year. And everything about this war is political poison with a large demographic of Republican voters. Not the boomers. The boomers love this. The boomers literally love this, right? That's their generation. They worship Israel. They think it's God's chosen people. And on top of that, they love the idea of taking the fight to the Muslims. This is what boomers were indoctrinated with all the while they were growing up. But the youth, they see it differently. A lot of youth will tell you Muslims are a pestilence and they're an annoyance and they are a wicked religion, but they're not the main problem. And this is changing the youth and their opinion even more. And I covered this on a prior episode as well. I said the Trump administration and Israel are both gambling majorly so with this war for different reasons. Trump is gambling on this war being a quick success. The longer this war drags out, the worse it is for this administration. And he's gambling on intelligence that might have been faulty. It turns out, or at least it's starting to look like, that Iran definitely did not have nuclear warheads. And we've made several mistakes along the way on it. But Trump was gambling on regime change, total regime change. So was Israel, mind you. Trump was gambling on a Persian Revolution in Iran. So was Israel in a way, mind you. And Trump was gambling on this being a quick operation to the point of where I think now they're starting to realize war is always a roll of the dice, like I say. And I think they didn't roll a sufficient die number in order to really come out victorious completely on this. So we're about to see a complete narrative. Well, Trump's been gaslighting it this way to set it up for this all along anyway. But we're really going to see Trump really buckle down on that narrative, I think, in the coming week after this weekend. I think it's very likely, like I stated, military action ramps up in Iran tonight, tomorrow night, over the weekend while the markets are closed. And I think Trump's going to come out after if the B2's, like I said, I think it takes a long time for B2 bombers to reach Iran. And CENTCOM was posting them taking off. I think they posted that today, quite a few hours ago. So there's a chance, I think, that the B2's reach Iran this weekend. I think that's probably what they're aiming for, but I'm not super educated on that. If I remember right, it might be a 40-hour round trip. So there is time then, basically. And if the B2's bomb Iran, I think what's likely to happen is Trump's going to once again come out publicly, just like he did last summer after the B2 runs, and he's going to claim again total annihilation and complete victory, which he's been saying all along that it is. He's been saying this war has been complete and total victory all along to begin with. So that's what I think is going to happen this weekend. And I'm seeing the writing on the wall, and I think anybody paying attention to this is, because conversely, you also have Bibi Netanyahu speaking publicly to the press for the first time since the start of this war. And Bibi Netanyahu was also essentially touting off similar statements that Trump was. But Israel and their press is actually amusing to watch because in some ways they're far more honest than our American press is. And they're more upfront about their goals. Americans never watch Israeli media, most likely, but if you did, you'd actually find it shocking, in all honesty, just how upfront they are, right? Bibi Netanyahu has already, some are saying this was an AI speech, but Bibi Netanyahu has already mentioned in an interview I saw the construction of the third temple and the coming of their Messiah. I don't know who that is, because it's certainly not my Messiah, being Jesus Christ. They don't believe in that, right? And I think we all know who they're talking about. They believe it's their Messiah. We know, if you're a Christian, we know that to be different. That will be, of course, the Antichrist. But, they're just upfront about this in their goal, the greater Israel region, becoming a regional hegemony for the Middle East, becoming growing as an incoming superpower. Israel doesn't hide their intent here. This was not about eliminating Muslims as a threat because we're doing the world a favor. This is about knocking out Iran, one of the last powerful nations in the Middle East under Israel, but could still pose a potential threat to Israel due to their drones and ballistic missiles as a defense mechanism and counter-striking mechanism. And so Iran was like the last counterbalance to Israel and still is acting as is. They're very clear about it, basically. And in his speech, Bibi Netanyahu basically went on to state, the regime has been mostly obliterated. Moshtaba Khamenei, the son of Ali Khamenei, was elected as the new supreme leader. But we're getting under the fog of war. We're getting conflicting reports from both sides. Iran says that he's clear and present and making statements and guiding the Iranian regime. Meanwhile, of course, we're being fed the news stories that Moshtaba Khamenei lost his entire family, had a leg blown off, his stomach's ruptured, his liver is shot, and he's in a coma. And it's hard to know who to believe. Either side could be right, in all honesty. No side has an incentive to tell the truth about that right now. And so we're not really sure. But Bibi Netanyahu went on to say that Moshtaba Khamenei can't even show his face. They're in defeat. The regime is done for. But then he also went on to state, essentially, and admit that this was not a complete success. And he did so by saying, essentially admitting, we're not really sure what the future of the IRGC is in Iran. We're not really sure what the future is for the Iranian regime there. Who will rise up if it's not going to be Moshtaba, if the intel's correct and he's going to die soon then. But he admitted that, and he admitted the uncertainty behind it, admitted that it wasn't a total success. And when it came to the Persian Revolution that they were hoping for, both him and Trump, he basically admitted that it doesn't look likely. And he did so by comparing them to the horse analogy, which is, of course, he literally said this, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. And so he did state that, and it does seem like they're willing to, it seems like what they're willing to do right now is admit that this was a semi-successful military operation, but they're probably willing to also put it on hold. That's what I'm taking from all of this, from the combined narrative of the Trump administration and the Bibi Netanyahu administration in Israel. It seems like they don't want to admit that there's a divergence between the two countries, Israel and U.S., that is, because they do have different goals in all of this. And it's not in Bibi's best interest to admit that, for sure, because he wants as much American support behind this war as possible. And so I think, the writing's on the wall here, like I stated. Midterm pressure is going to be mounting more and more on this administration. This war is political poison, especially for the under 40-year-old voter demographic here in America. I myself, as a young millennial, have Middle East fatigue, and I've been very outspoken against this war. Though I don't support the Iranian regime, I was Israel neutral last year, and now I've changed my stance on that as well. I am very much so against both Israel and Iran at this point, and I don't want to see soldiers shedding their blood for Israel in a war that we have no business being in. This is a holy war that's being fought between two opposing religions, and neither of those religions are the religion that America was founded on. We do not practice Judaism as a country here, nor do we obviously practice Islam. They're both demonic, false religions. So it's not in Bibi's best interest to allow there to appear to be a divergence between the U.S. and America. So I think what he's doing is essentially giving Trump permission to pull out of this war. And I think they're gearing up to do that in combination with the news that we received today when it comes to the B2 bombers launching. So the B2 bombers, the way I see it, and the way we're able to deduce how Trump operates now, watching him for over a full year in his second term here, and of course getting his first term to see how he operates as well. Trump is, of course, the kind of guy, it's literally his motto. It's in his books. Never admit defeat, always declare victory no matter what, right? Never apologize, always declare victory, never admit defeat. And when it comes to war, that's actually a good policy. So Trump's already been doing that. He's setting that narrative up. He's been setting it up pretty much since day one when we struck Iran and Tehran. And they're telling you how many targets we've taken out. 1,200 people in Iran total are dead. And we've wiped out like 49 or 50 of the total Iranian regime. We've wiped out like their top political people, their military people. So it has been effective from an objective standpoint. Now, since Trump will want to claim victory, he'll need to do so in a grandiose fashion, right? Because we're now about 2 weeks removed from the initial strikes on Tehran. That'll, of course, be tomorrow. And so what we're really going to see, I think, like I said over the weekend, those B-2 bombers, this is where they play their part. Bibi Netanyahu has essentially said, well, this was the overall tone of Bibi Netanyahu's speech, if you can rely on the translation of the video, that is essentially a tone of, well, this was militarily successful, but probably not completely so. We can lead the horse to water, but we can't make them drink, so we're going to ultimately leave that up to the Persians. That's what I got out of Bibi's speech, and essentially the duality of that speech is Trump has permission to now pull out of Iran, which is a good thing for this administration, although probably already too late when it comes to midterms for the GOP and the Republicans. But that would be the reasoning behind it here on Trump's part. This is going to, a long-term sustained Middle East war will ruin our economy for multiple different reasons. I covered that yesterday. It'll put the world almost into a recession because of how important the Strait of Hormuz is to the world when it comes to trade routes, oil, and even fertilizers for our farmers. So much happens in the Strait of Hormuz. It's the artery of the Middle East, and Iran has pledged to keep it locked down. So it's already a disaster as it is from that standpoint. And then with the midterms coming up, now news coming in today, of course, that Pete Hegseth has deployed more naval ships, this time carrying thousands of Marines on them. You know, it's just growing into more and more political poison. No doubt this administration is receiving multiple calls from House Republicans asking for a timeline and a deadline on this war, which is, of course, also a foolish request and ask to make, because war cannot be, you cannot put war in any form of parameter. War is unpredictable in its nature. But that's essentially the writing that on the wall that I see here is Bibi Netanyahu has given Trump permission to pull out for now. Midterms are on the horizon. We can't stay here for long is basically what it is for Trump. And so politically speaking, it's got to happen. I think this weekend, B2's bomb Iran. Trump comes out just like he did last year, claims total annihilation, complete victory, and we begin a withdrawal from that region. But not a total withdrawal. And I'm going to break that down in 1 second, because Hegseth today, like I said, moved a large part of our Navy, more of our naval vessels, into the Persian Gulf. This time it has Marines on board, and that's for a reason. I'm going to break that down in 1 second. Please, first, be sure to like the stream if you're enjoying this analysis. Double tap your phone screen or hit the thumbs up button if you're watching on the computer like a boomer. It really does help the stream perform well in the algorithm. And subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this. When you do, make sure post notifications are turned on so you're notified every single time I go live. And I have a link to my X account pinned in the chat below, so you should tap that and follow me on X. But I'm going to take a look at some chats. I know chats are coming in. And then I'm going to break down the boots on the ground. I did make an episode quite a few days ago now about how I believed boots on the ground would be imminent. And now we're getting the news that Hegseth has moved. I think it's the initial report said 5,000 Marines, or perhaps it said 5,000 more. But the initial number right now, as it stands, is 2,500 Marines being deployed overseas to Iran, arriving on naval vessels. And you can't categorize it as boots on the ground just yet. I'll explain why, and then I'll also explain why I think, once again, we're in there now, basically. I'll explain it all in a second. Let me take a look at some chats. I don't want to ignore you guys forever, though most of you probably deserve to be ignored forever, but we'll see. Hey, Eddie's here. Welcome, Eddie. I appreciate you, man. Eddie says, American Advocates, I got a cousin in the Marines in Japan. You think he's on his way to Iran? That kid is not ready. If he's in the Marines, they're going to say he's ready, man. So if he went through basic, he's good to go. And yeah, there's definitely a chance. I'll just be honest with you. There's a chance. Will it come from Japan, though? I'm not sure. I didn't look into where we were sending the naval fleet and the naval ships with the Marines on it from. I'm not sure if it's coming from the U.S. or from Japan. It would make more sense to send it from somewhere closer than the U.S., though. So we'll see. You don't know shit about boomers. Who cares about? Nobody cares about boomers anyway, Coos Mill. Like, literally nobody cares. Fuck you, ass. Yeah, see, these chats are the shits. I don't know who. Some of these chats are insane. U.S. permission to exit says, yeah, U.S. has no staying power. Well, now I'm going to break this down in a second. We have to stay there to some degree, I think. Which is why, again, the Marines are going there. I think Trump will do what he's told by the APAC. APAC is for congressmen, not for presidents. But certainly, yes, there is. I know what you're saying, and you're not wrong. There's a lot of money and influence in our politics, unfortunately. Yes, sir, I agree with that, says Mike Cameron, 5104. Appreciate that, Mike Cameron. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Steve Loftus says, we're lucky we got into this when we got into it. We can handle it. If you would have kept it going to Iranians would have teamed up with the Chinese, we would have never been able to do what we did now. They're already teamed up with the Chinese. Like, what are you talking about? China's already sending them money. The school that we bombed by accident, it's most likely us, by the way. this is another thing, and I'm gonna use this to, because I did want to talk about this in briefing to some degree. This is another thing when it comes to this administration. Trump literally did originally say that they weren't sure who bombed that school in Iran. It killed like 140 people, a lot of schoolgirls. The worst part about it was we bombed the school. We most likely bombed the school. And then emergency crews showed up, and we did a second bombing run there 40 minutes later, so we bombed the emergency crews as well. Disaster, obviously. It's not a military target, so disaster. Now, Trump immediately came out and he said, well, he literally said, well, they bombed themselves, they bombed their own school because they're wicked, evil people. It's like, do people really believe that? Of course, the MAGA cheerleaders were eating up. They're like, yeah, look they bombed their own school children. Look how evil they are. It's like, are you that stupid? That school is full of the daughters of a lot of the Iranian regime leaders. They wouldn't bomb their own school. But Trump literally tried to say that. He's like, well, we don't know, we don't know who bombed it. A lot of countries have Tomahawk missiles. And then today he comes out and he says, well, we're the only ones with Tomahawk missiles. So it's like, okay, buddy. All right. Why don't you? So, okay, who has Tomahawk missiles? Just us. Okay. And the school was bombed by who? Well, it was bombed by Iran. Okay. Was it though? They bombed their own children? We're the only ones with Tomahawk missiles? Interesting. So we're lucky to have done it when we got in because of China. China's already allied with Iran. It's called the BRICS nations. And on top of that, we see this playing out now where China's now agreeing to send millions of dollars to Iran. The Chinese Red Cross is donating millions of dollars to go towards a school that was bombed. So it's like they're already allied. The real problem here is Iran doesn't have nuclear power, but obviously China and Russia do. So it's BRICS, China, Russia, etc. They have nukes, we have nukes. So now what's really happening with China, and they'd be wise to do this, and objectively speaking, of course, as an American, I don't want them to, but Iran has just become an upgraded proxy point now. The same way Iran uses the Houthis and out of Yemen and whatnot, the Houthis and Hezbollah, to strike us as proxy terrorists. Well, now Iran is just an upgraded version of that for China and Russia. And we are seeing that. Now we're seeing Putin, who I always give credit to, is much more diplomatic than we give him credit for. Putin's already been trying to work out ceasefire deals. He even made some sort of ridiculous deal that we should not have accepted and didn't when it comes to Iran's nuclear facilities. He said, well, you can just move the nuclear facilities to Russia. It's like, no. What kind of offer? No, we're not doing that. But Putin's playing the diplomat. He's playing the good cop. And then you have China. They're actually kind of playing the good cop by donating all that Chinese Red Cross money to the Iranian school and their families of the children that are dead. But China will probably be taking up a more bad cop role when it comes to funding. And they would be stupid not to. So they're already allied is the point, though, right? It's not about, oh, well, if they really strengthen ties with China, this would be impossible. We shouldn't have done this to begin with. This is not about China. This is not about China at all. And we should be more focused on China than we are Iran. Iran was never the problem for us. They're in the Middle East, in the middle of nowhere, and they have Israel to deal with as a neighbor, right? Iran can't reach us. They didn't have nuclear warheads, it looks like, and they can't fly fucking planes that well. And then on top of it, their ballistic missiles couldn't reach us. This should not have been something we're involved in. This is a holy war. Make no mistake about it. America has stuck its nose in the middle of a holy war between rabbinic Jews in Israel practicing Judaism and Muslims practicing Islam, Shiite Muslims. So that's what this is. It doesn't really have that much to do with China, to be honest with you. Like, if you think it's about China, you're really missing the point, in all honesty. This was Israel's bidding, and we're fulfilling it. He's probably a George Sorel. I don't know who that is. Oh, thank you. Israel, do we really need it, says Mike. Yeah. Let me catch up with chat. Iran is never the problem, correct? Yeah, it's not. It's not the problem. Muslims are a pestilence. They practice a wicked, demonic religion, and they are potentially problems. They're more so problems now that we've stirred the hornet's nest up, but they're not the main problem. And if you think they are, you're being sold a lie. You're buying into boomer propaganda. Do you think 5,000 Marines can do damage in Iran? It's not about doing damage in Iran, Eddie. It's about something different. I'm going to break that down right now, actually. Bring back our sons from the Gulf. We are not fighting Israel's war. Amen. I hope we do. Steve says Iran is so radical. It is the radical Iran, and they'll use somebody near them. They do use people near them. You know how to avoid being targeted by Iran? Just don't go to the Middle East. Practice the Monroe Doctrine. Again, my favorite doctrine on this channel. All this year 2026 on this channel is going to be the year of the Monroe Doctrine, because I think I'll justifiably be able to say we should practice that more and more as time goes on. But if we just practice the Monroe Doctrine, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran wouldn't be a problem for us. It would be inconsequential. They would let us use the Strait of Hormuz for the most part. And if they acted up, we could quell it real quick. But, moving 50% of our Navy to the Persian Gulf and then moving our military over there and then saying, well, our military was there and we felt like Iran was a threat. It's like, yeah, no shit. We moved all of our shit over there. That was literally what Secretary of State Rubio said, though. He's like, well, we realized that they were going to be a threat to our Navy if Israel struck them first. It's like, yeah, you know why that is? Because we moved 50% of our Navy there. So yes, they are a threat to the Navy. You know how they're not a threat to our Navy? If we kept it on the shores of Venezuela and around Cuba, where we should be focusing on right now. That's how you avoid that threat. It's not actually that hard. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. I'm just a stupid moron. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure boomers are going to hate my outlook on this. But I wanted to break down those Marines. Eddie brought that up. And I do want to talk about that because it is important here. The Marines are going in. So they're going in, and, the bottom line is, to summarize real fast once again, B2 bombers, CENTCOM posted video footage of B2 bombers taking off. So clearly a large strike is incoming. Historically, so far throughout this administration, Trump picks the weekends to execute military operations. Wall Street is closed on Saturday and Sunday. Markets don't react, can't see the effects right away. And by Monday, you can try and smooth it out a little bit to avoid a market from declining too quickly, right? So Saturday is usually the day, right? 2 weeks ago, coming up this Saturday, I went live at 4 a.m. to announce we'd struck Iran in Tehran, right? This is what they do. So very predictably, major strikes are probably coming this weekend, I think. Now, Hegseth. Tying in real fast. Bibi seems to give Trump permission to start pulling out of Iran, stating it's been a regime change. Moshtaba Khamenei's a coward, too cowardly, can't show his face, probably been devastated. Rumors are he's in a coma, his liver's ruptured, he's missing a leg. We don't know how much propaganda that is or how much reality that is, but Bibi says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. He's talking about a Persian uprising in Iran. He's talking about the Iranian people taking their country back. And a lot of ground reports are actually indicating that at least a good chunk of the Iran population is actually siding with the regime. And there's been rallies on the streets now in support of the regime. And so not only has that failed, an uprising, a bottom-up regime change, which is the only real true way to effect a regime change in a country, a lasting one that is. You can't do top-down. You can't. And we know this from the mid-2000s where we tried it in Middle Eastern countries and it failed every single time. So you can't do it top-down. It has to be bottom-up. Trump was hoping for bottom-up. Bibi was hoping for bottom-up. But at least it looks like a good chunk of the citizens are supporting the Iranian regime on the ground reports. There's footage now of them marching around with photos of Moshtaba Khamenei, the new supreme leader. So it not only didn't it work, but it failed. And so you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. So that's like permission to start pulling out. Only we can't pull out completely. And this is where the Marines come in. And basically, these Marines are being sent there on these naval vessels by Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, because we're in it now. That's the bottom line here. We are in it now. This strike will not be forgiven. It's not like last summer where we had a clear objective, and so much so that Iran, who doesn't actually want to fuck with us the way that a lot of Americans think they do, Iran was actually far more understanding than we give them credit for. We took out their nuclear bases, or what we thought were their nuclear bases, and they retaliated with a strike that happened after a courtesy phone call from the Iranian regime to the Pentagon to announce that they were striking that base, which was already empty. All said and done, they don't appear weak. It's wrapped up. It's over with. Diplomacy resumes. Obviously, it went differently this time. And so the Marines are going in now because we're in it now. Iran is pissed. Their regime, many of their top leaders are dead. 1,200 total casualties over in Iran from Iran with Iranian people, right? And now the death toll for our soldiers I saw was up to 13 or 14 today. So we're losing some lives too. We're losing equipment, etc. Military bases of ours have been struck. And so it is a war now, and you can't just simply pull out of it entirely at this point. this political poison will continue to play out for this Trump administration, and we know that because the Strait of Hormuz, like I said, it's an artery in the Middle East. It is vital for trade and especially for oil, right? And we only get a small percentage of our oil there, but even that percentage will affect our economy, and it's going to cause a global recession at this point if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed down by the Iranian regime. And so that's why the Marines are being deployed. They're being deployed, according to reports, 2,500 of them. I saw the one report. Let me pull that up real fast. Wall Street Journal. I'm not sure how much I should take this accurately, on their basis what they're saying, but because Wall Street Journal also was the one I remember correctly. 2 Saturdays ago said that this would be a four-day event, this war, and we're now, of course, on day 14, heading to day 15 technically tomorrow. So we'll see. But it says Wall Street Journal was reporting possibly 5,000 or 5,000 more Marines. I'm not really understanding exactly how they're reporting it, but they reported on 5,000 Marines, but I believe Pete Hegseth reported at 2,500. Either way, a significant amount of Marines, thousands of them. And this is now going to be boots on the ground, though technically, and the MAGA cope you're seeing on the internet right now, because this was the goalpost for a lot of MAGA people. MAGA people, a lot of hardcore MAGA voters, and again, I voted for Trump. I am a conservative, socially and fiscally, but I don't support any of this, right? And I am not MAGA at this point. What was a coalition in the form of MAGA has become a cult, and you can no longer criticize the Lord and Savior of that cult, Donald Trump, anymore without being labeled a panikin or whatever, right? But a lot of people admit that boots on the ground would sour their perception of this Iran war. A lot of Republicans draw the line on airstrikes and naval strikes, but no boots on the ground, because boots on the ground obviously usually indicates an increase in casualties. More soldiers will die as a result, is basically how that'll go. But at this point, I believe it has to actually happen because the Strait of Hormuz is so vital, and the Iranian regime has pledged and vowed to choke the Strait of Hormuz in response to the U.S. and Israel's actions in their country, bombing Tehran and Iran so much. So they've vowed to keep that region choked off, and the supreme leader, if he is alive, Mojtaba Khamenei, delivered his first statement, not in person, but using the Iranian press, and basically said the Strait of Hormuz will remain locked down to continue pressure on the enemy, and the Iranian regime has vowed to keep it locked down even if the United States pulls out of the region. And so we've already seen 6 oil tankers in the past 3 days be struck, some of them actually quite literally almost blown up at this point. The one was smoldering, floating in the Strait of Hormuz, still floating, but smoldering on the side, just a hole blown open into it. And that's because Iran is using suicide boats and drones. So they're vowing to keep it locked, and as a result of that, we can't allow that because there's a lot of diplomatic pressure on the United States now since we started this war. We struck them first. So we started this war in Iran, and there's diplomatic pressure now from all these other countries because oil must pass through the region. And there's pressure on Trump even from a domestic economic standpoint because the oil futures will put us into a recession as well and drive up our cost of living here even higher than it already is. So that's why the Marines are going there. They will now most likely, though the MAGA cope, like I said, is it's not boots on the ground yet because they're on the naval vessel. So MAGA cope, literally, I kid you not, is, well, it's not boots on the ground because they're not on the ground. They're on naval ships. Why do you think they're there? You think we're sending ships there full of 2,500 Marines so that they can go on a glorified cruise and continue to eat that steak and lobster dinner on a U.S. naval military cruise through the Strait of Hormuz? Is that why they're there? Just for some sightseeing and a fancy steak and lobster dinner while on board? Is that what's happening? It's like, no. I called this out a few episodes. I said, MAGA cheerleaders, again, they were literally saying, in MAGA cheerleaders' minds, in their heads, it's literally, one day you wake up on the barracks as a private in the Marines, and your sergeant says, line up outside the mess hall. You line up outside the mess hall, and the staff sergeant walks around and says, we love you guys so much. This is just the best battalion ever. We want you to enter the mess hall, eat your steak and lobster dinner. Don't be alarmed. It just means we love you guys. That's it. How do people not know this by now? Steak and lobster dinner means deployment. It's like the last meal, and it's joked about as such by Marines, by the military. So I called that out as it was. I said, this furthers my prediction about boots on the ground being imminent. They're not just being fed expensive steak and lobster dinners for no reason. They're being fed that to boost morale because there's a chance they get deployed, and there's a chance in that deployment they die. So I called that out, right? But MAGA cheerleaders were like, oh, wow, Pete Hegseth and Trump, they love their troops so much, they're feeding them steak and lobster now. It's like, do you not understand? But they don't, and it's copium. Now the copium it's advanced. Now 2,500 Marines, surprise, surprise, bellies full of steak and lobster are ordered onto naval vessels, which are now heading to Iran. I wonder why that is. The MAGA cope has now gravitated from a caring administration feeding troops surf and turf to now, well, they're there, but they're just on the ships. It's not boots on the ground then. And militarily speaking, it's technically not. But this is the copium. Oh, they're just on the ships. That's all. It's just a show of force. It's just to remind them that there's potential, but they're just on the ship still. Certainly, our president wouldn't deploy the troops off the ships and actually affect boots on the ground. That wouldn't happen, right? And this is the copium because, very matter-of-factly so, most people are against this war as it is, and even the ones that support it outright have also acknowledged, many of them have acknowledged that boots on the ground is unacceptable. And that's the Middle East fatigue playing its part. But the problem is, boots on the ground is going to most likely be inevitable at this point because of the tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. They must lock down the Strait of Hormuz, not with just our naval vessels, but boots on the ground will have to spread out on both sides of it on the shores to be able to monitor the situation and attempt to try to stop any attacks from the Iranian regime on passing oil tankers. Six oil tankers have already been struck down in the past 3 days. So this is going to be necessary. And that's why we're in it now, is what I mean. Yes, Bibi Netanyahu seems to have given Trump somewhat permission to pull out for political reasons, no doubt. By basically saying, well, we tried. You can only lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink. We were hoping for a bottom-up revolution in the country at the hands of the Persians and the oppressed Iranians, but they don't seem interested. And go figure, 30,000 of them probably, according to the numbers, have already been executed by this Iranian government anyway. The ones who were interested are dead, so it doesn't even matter. But, that's basically what they're saying is, well, we did our best. We took out the regime as it is. We don't know what the future regime will look like. But this wasn't a complete failure. It just wasn't a complete success because the Iranian people won't rise up. And so that's like permission for Trump to start pulling out in a lot of ways. But we can't pull out completely now. We just can't. We struck them first. We stirred the hornet's nest, and they're locking down the Strait of Hormuz. We must counter that for geopolitical reasons at this point, and for our own reasoning, our own benefit. And so that's why there's Marines there now, and that's my prediction for all of this. My prediction is, to recap real fast, B2's have launched. CENTCOM videos emerged today. Our B2 bombers, the Freedom Doritos, are in the skies. A big bombing run takes effect. Trump is an optics guy. Trump is that kind of a guy. He's an optics guy. He's a narrative guy. So the optics of B2's bombing Iran again will be massive photos of explosions, videos being posted on social media. Oh my God, we're finishing the job. This is it. This success that Trump is claiming, this is it. This will do it. And many of the boomers they'll eat that slop right out of the trough. Oh, we took the fight to them and we annihilated those scum Muslims. Oh, it's done this time. Our hero Trump, he saved the day. Wow, what a great operation. Did you see those B2 bombers over the weekend? Wow. People they'll eat that up, that slop. They'll eat it up, right? And Trump will come out on over the weekend. He'll put a true social statement out. Monday morning, he'll hit the press, or Tuesday, however long this operation lasts. It might go longer than the weekend, but we'll see. But he'll come out Monday or Tuesday and he'll say, we did it. It's a total annihilation. It's really finished this time. Complete victory. The entire regime is dead. We took them out. It's a complete victory. I encourage the Iranian people, the beautiful Persians of Iran, to rise up and take their country back. But we're as for us, we're done here. And then it'll be the Strait of Hormuz stuff that we have to now monitor because of us. And the Marines will still have to stay there. And that's what I predict. And I could be wrong. It's like I said, the fog of war is real, right? It's real. The truth is always the first casualty of war. But this is the writing on the wall that I see. And who knows how it's going to play out. I just think it's becoming more and more obvious what's happening here, though. So that's what I see happening. They call this an excursion as it is, which is funny. What's the definition of excursion? Let me pull that up again. Basically, it's admitting An excursion is a short, typically pleasurable trip or outing, often undertaken by a group to a specific interesting definition. So it's an out of the way trip, you know. And I love that they're calling it an excursion, because it's like that's what this was. This was a U.S. excursion on behalf of Israel, and it is Israel first. Truthfully, this does not benefit Americans. Our gas is more expensive now, and if this is not dealt with properly and quickly, the rising oil prices. Right, I just announced that earlier. Brent crude closed at 103.86 today. Oil futures are up again at 97, and so if this continues on this way, our cost of living will increase, because oil rising means gas costs go up, and gas costs increase means cost of transportation goes up. Cost of transportation goes up means price of goods increase. So this does need to end quickly, and I hope it does. And that's kind of, I think, in part why I'm predicting that it ends this way, or at least somewhat concludes this way. But the double-edged sword here is Iran, being a zealous Muslim country, is now pissed, and they want to hurt us, and they want to get back at us for this. So they will do everything they can to make the Strait of Hormuz living hell for all countries trying to pass through. Iran has made their own statements diplomatically, and they've notified their neighbors that though they like their neighbors, they're going to continue to bomb their neighbors, and they've also promised a lot of countries in the Middle East. Essentially, they're playing a diplomatic political game. Iran has promised that if their countries expel their U.S. diplomats, essentially disavow us, then they will allow those countries' oil tankers to continue to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And so they really are attempting to lock down and control the Strait of Hormuz, as they've always done. This was perhaps the most predictable outcome about going to war with Iran. They've done it before, and they're doing it again. And that's why Marines are there. And so we're in that region now, and we're locked in. And I think likely what we should also expect here is, yes, Bibi Netanyahu seems to have given Trump halfway permission to pull out of the region, mostly for now, right? Though we have to, I think, leave our Marines there, like I said, and some of our Navy for the Strait of Hormuz purposes. But striking Iran, I think, will be concluding. We'll strike them big over the weekend, maybe, with the B2's. Trump will claim victory, and then we'll ease off for a while. And that's all being done on our end in the name of the midterms, because though the GOP's already shot, there's no way this is going to be a blue wave, these midterms, and I hope it is. Even as a social and fiscal conservative, I said this before, and I don't care how many people it pisses off, I hope it's a blue wave. This administration has fucking failed us on almost every level. The southern borders are locked down, and that's pretty much all we got. Everything else, Trump has been wishy-washy on at best, and he has deprioritized the American people in favor of Israel's agenda now, and that was truly my final straw. That was my breaking point, my watershed moment right there, was seeing this happen. And so as a result of that, I am not voting conservative whatsoever in these midterms unless it comes down to a good conservative governor. But when it comes to legislation, Congress, the House, I hope to see the GOP ousted. They have failed us. And even in the Senate now, it's looking like that they're going to lose. And John Thune is useless, fighting Trump every step of the way already on good stuff that we want, like the Save America Act, when it comes to electoral, confidence. So this GOP has complete control, and they've accomplished next to nothing. They deserve the loss that's coming their way. But nevertheless, they're still going to feel like they have a shot. And with the midterms on the horizon, it does make the most sense. Trump's got to pull the military out now for the most part. And the worst part is he can't do it completely, I think, because of the Strait. So the Marines are there, the Navy's there, we'll stop striking them, and then it'll all be put on pause, is basically what it is. We're not done in Iran, right? This is not done with. Bibi Netanyahu, in his own words, he's been waiting 40 years for this war. He's not going to let this one go. And Israel and the Jews have influenced our politics so much with their money that we will be pulled back there one way or another. Probably in just 2027 is what it will be after the midterm pressure is gone. And we'll be pulled back there. And that's honestly, again, why if Congress is mostly blue for 2027, Trump will have a harder time doing this, because the sad, I hate that this pains me to say this as a conservative, but the sad reality is the Democrats, when it comes to this Middle East war, will be the lesser of two evils. They will fight this every step of the way. And the bottom line is, if Congress is blue next year, they'll make it a nightmare for Trump to try to do what he's doing now again in 2027 if Israel demands that he does. And so that's what I see on the horizon, though. And I think what will actually happen then as a result is, truthfully, we could be in either for a straight up attack from Iran in the name of vengeance on our soil, which would pull us into that region into an all out war, at which point, of course, Congress, no matter if it's blue or red, would approve of that war. They would have to. Or a false flag. We could be seeing a false flag event occur in 2027 or 2028, because this is not done. This will have to be put on pause, but it's not over by any stretch of the imagination, especially if Mojtaba Khamenei lives. And so we're getting a lot of propaganda on both sides. We don't know what his fate ultimately is. I saw reports today that Mojtaba Khamenei has a ruptured liver and a missing leg. That would mean he's going to die. But if that's just propaganda reporting, if that's Israeli intel reporting or American intel reporting, and it's being done deliberately in the fog of war, just as propaganda, and it's not true and he lives, well, that regime is going to be more radicalized against the United States and Israel rather than less, and that's going to be the ultimate problem for both of us, truthfully, at this point, but especially for Israel, who wanted us to do this to topple Iran and weaken them to the point where Israel could proceed with its regional hegemony goals, right? It wants the greater Israel region. So if Mojtaba Khamenei doesn't die, that Iranian regime will be radicalized even more. It'll be more anti-Israel, more anti-America, not less. And so it's only probably a matter of time, if that's the case, that we go back in there, and in likely, I think, a full-scale war at that point, either triggered from a false flag event or straight up from Iranian retaliation. So that's what I see on the horizon, though. In the short term, expect this weekend to get fiery. That's my prediction. Could be wrong on that, but expect it to get fiery because Trump will need to just pulling out under the optics of complete annihilation like he did last summer. So the B2's are in the skies, and that can really only mean one thing, unless they're just bluffing. But why would they at this point? You don't need to bluff a country that can't really fight you back from a military standpoint, and Iran's military cannot fight us back whatsoever. All right, I'll take a look at some chats. Hey, Turbo Crisis here. I recognize you. Let's see what you have to say in a second. Let me scroll up a little bit. Oh my gosh, you're a bot. Shut up. Says the person who literally says OMG as an entire chat. I think you're the bot. It's a choke point. Yeah, the Hormuz. Hormuz is a choke point, yes. Netanyahu is Polish. Yeah, you know, people do question his actual bloodline. I think he's bit off more than he can chew, says Ravenfeller. Who are you talking, Trump? Occupy Karg Island and evacuate the Iranians. No, let's not do that. Certainly, here's the big problem too. If we went to war, if this administration ultimately goes to war in Iran, it's going to be a Democrat administration in 2028 then, because everyone will vote Democrat because most Americans despise the idea of war in the Middle East again. And what happens when a Democrat gets in office then? You know, if it's a Gavin Newsom ticket with AOC as vice president, well, they're gonna open up our country to all of the fucking Iranian refugees again. That just means more fucking Muslims in our country, and that means like 10 more Dearborn, Michigans. This administration wants you to think it's the Muslims that are the ultimate evil. If that was the case, why aren't they dealing with Dearborn, Michigan, Dallas, Texas, the Austin, Texas mass shooting? Why aren't they dealing with that? It's because it's not actually about Muslims. It's about serving Israel's interests. But do I want tons more Muslim refugees in my country? No. And that's what happens if we go to war in Iran and decimate their country. All of a sudden, it's all the refugees. And what happens with the refugees? Well, it's always regime members that sneak in. It's radicalized infidels from Muslim infidels that sneak on board with the refugees, and then they enter our country and they sit here as sleeper cells. So that's a problem. I don't want that to happen. I don't want a single immigrant in this country for the next 20 years, let alone refugees. People are starving, and Pete Hegseth spent $9 million on crab legs. Yeah, let's not manufacture outrage about that. The troops deserve that food because they're going in very likely to die for a foreign country. So, you know, let them eat their crab legs and their lobster and steak. That's standard practice in our military. I have no beef with the concept or the principle of feeding troops very well before war. I have beef with the idea, and the reason why I tweeted against it, not because our soldiers don't deserve it, but because it means we're putting boots on the ground most likely. And now I'm being more vindicated in time. They're on a naval vessel, 2,500 Marines, heading to Iran. What does that mean, you know? So, but the cost of the food, I don't give a shit. $9 million is not even that much anymore nowadays, especially when it comes to government spending. They might be blowing money on food like that, but the number is so high spent on crab legs, it's probably just somebody writing stuff down for money laundering. That could be it too. It's going to be harsh. No war for Israel. I agree, Matthew Ferguson. No war for Israel. Yeah, because that ain't going to give you in the middle of a combat zone. I don't know what you're mentioning there. It's literally the exact same pattern they use to get American involvement in every conflict. They put us in a situation or scenario that we're forced and coerced into. Pearl Harbor, Gulf of Tonkin, etc. That is true. 9/11. Just going to say it. And you know what? 9/11. I'm not saying it even under the guise of the conspiracy theory of it being a false flag or not. 9/11, whether or not it was a false flag or it was actually just Muslim jihadists, it goes to show the main point of all of this. The old wise saying that the Muslim nations are the broomstick for Israel. They're the broom, right? Israel uses them, even if they're against each other. That is how that plays out every single time. Iraq War is another good example, right? Your grandkids, if any of your T count is high enough to have kids, will thank us. No, they won't. And my grandkids certainly will look back. I'll make sure they look back on the boomer generation as the most disgusting, warmongering, sinful, individualistic generation of all time. The most selfish, entitled, disgusting generation. That's the boomer generation. And we all know it, by the way. Every generation under the boomers is literally just crossing our fingers and waiting for every boomer motherfucker to just die already. The world, our society will be so much better without that disgusting generation. Save for the few good ones that do wind up in my chat, by the way. There's a guy I have in my chat, Howard Clegg. He's one of the cool boomers. And there are cool boomers, but for the most part, yuck. It's all work, and everyone involved is getting worked from every angle and vantage point. There is no winning in this, only degrees of losing. I mostly agree with that, Turbo Christ. Yep. What did Bibi say? I missed that. So Bibi said basically, Bibi in his first statement, if the translation's to be believed, I saw comments under the video I watched of it saying, this translation's only half correct. But essentially Bibi was saying, the regime is dead, which is not completely true, but kind of true. He was talking about the prominent leaders. He then addressed Moshtaba Khamenei being blown to smithereens and not likely to survive, which we're not sure of the validity of that claim. There's reports suggesting that Moshtaba Khamenei's liver was ruptured and his leg was blown off and he's in a coma, but we're not really sure. It makes no sense for Moshtaba Khamenei to make a public appearance now. We would obviously just kill him if he did. So he's in hiding one way or another. Whether or not he's in a comatose state or not, we don't know. But he basically said Moshtaba Khamenei is too cowardly to show his face. He can't even show his face. But then he also said, when it comes to regime change, you can only lead the horse to water. You cannot make the horse drink. And that is, of course, him making the analogy for the Iranian people, the Persians, because Bibi and Trump seem to have been hoping for a bottom-up regime change. And it doesn't seem likely to happen. So I believe our country is cooked. The only thing to do is to wait out the ride down. I don't believe that. That's super black pill and doomer pilled. And, cowardice is a gutless act, right? To be a coward it's a gutless act. It doesn't take any courage. Hope takes courage, and that's why a lot of people are adverse to it. They don't want to get their hopes up to feel the letdown. But ultimately, we must maintain hope in our nation because there's nowhere else to go. Not certainly for me. I'm an American and I love my country and my people. So I believe America can turn around. And I think there's a lot of positive indicators of that, especially when it comes to the youth. It really is about boomers dying. We need boomers to hit the deceased line quick because they control our politics still. But by 2028, that's going to change. And it's going to change more so every single election season beyond that. And when younger people take power, I believe we can turn this country around. So I have not given up hope. You shouldn't either. Stupid thing to do, going to war. It's a raise no other president has. Yeah, I agree. Mr. Peppa says, sad to see, wonder how many of those poor Marines are going to be killed or injured within the first 24 hours they put boots on the ground. We'll see. It's still not sure if we're putting boots on the ground. I would say there's still a percentage chance we don't, but, I'm not going along with the MAGA cope. The MAGA cope has been shifting the goalpost every step of the way, right? And the MAGA cope is, well, they're just on the naval vessel. It's like, okay, and where's the naval vessel going? That's right, the Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, yeah. So what do you think that's for? Like, of course it's to lock down the strait and to put boots on the ground on the shores of the Strait of Hormuz. Netanyahu said the U.S. was maneuverable. We are, and we've proven that, haven't we? We did exactly what we wanted, and we put ourselves in a compromising situation. We moved 50% of our Navy to the Persian Gulf back in February, out from our own Western Hemisphere when we were dealing with Venezuela, by the way. So we did so at our detriment. And then we moved more military equipment at other countries' detriment that we've ensured we would protect. We moved entire THAAD systems to the Middle East from the Indo-Pacific region, away from China, our actual real enemy in this world. And then we sat there like idiots, and then Israel said, well, we're going to strike them now. And basically we realized, oh, shit, if they strike Iran, they're going to strike back, and that includes us, so now we must strike them. So Israel completely manipulated us, and they always have. And that's just, again, that's a money thing. It's a money and influence thing. You need to have them denounce working for Israel before voting for anyone. Well, we need to have them take a much more serious pledge. And there needs to be consequences for our politicians for failing us. And those consequences need to be much more severe. That's really the bottom line. If this was happening 200 years ago, the fate of a lot of these politicians would be the most grim fate you could imagine. We didn't tolerate this shit as American people 200 years ago. We just tolerate it all now. And now they all walk around do whatever they want because the people don't rise up the same way anymore. He's redirecting from the Epstein files. This is not about the Epstein files. That is such copium. It's literally about the greater Israel region, okay? If you don't know what that is, look it up. But it's about regional hegemony for Israel. It's about ushering in a new superpower in the world, Israel. And that's what it's all about. It's not about the Epstein files. The distraction, I'm sure, is welcomed by this administration, though, that doesn't want to release them. But it's not about the Epstein files. You think Pete's getting fired next? No, I don't. Pete's pretty loyal. I admire Pete Hegseth in some ways, even if I'm not really supportive of anything. Pete's very loyal to Trump. And Pete won't do what Kristi Noem did to Trump. He won't throw Trump under the bus, at least not during the administration. Pete Hegseth strikes me, if nothing else, as actually a pretty honest guy, and his honesty will get him in trouble. Actually, yeah. So maybe he could get fired if he's too honest. If he's too honest about this, he might get fired. But I don't think so. No. The ESPN files, yeah. Well, I think it's inevitable. I do too, but we can't be sure. We'll see. I think there's a overwhelming odds, though, that we will see Marines deployed on the ground in Iran because the Strait of Hormuz will leave them pretty much no choice. You have no clue what you are talking about. Not a single flying fucking of a clue. Let's see if he goes on to actually state user. Let's see if he goes on to actually state some sort of contrasting opinion and analysis, though. Has an opinion and yet doesn't know the first thing about what he is speaking. So user says, I don't know what I'm talking about, but can't offer any sort of contrasting analysis. Interesting. Wow, I've never seen that before on the internet. Do I think aliens are real? No. The boomer generation was the greatest generation, they say? No. The greatest generation was the World War II generation, which was much before the boomers. The boomers are the product of that. The boomers are the weak men who made hard times, right? That's what the boomers are. They're the weak men who have produced the hard times. They're the generation that literally had it easier than their parents for obvious reasons, and they have it easier than their children for obvious reasons. I appreciate people like you who lean right but can still criticize the party. Hey, Brad Lang, that's exactly what we're supposed to do as Americans. You know what I mean? Like my biggest criticism, I can't stand most liberals because they couldn't bring themselves to criticize Biden. But you should. You know what I mean? Like you should. Especially, you should criticize the party, especially the one you vote for. You know, like in 2028, if Gavin Newsom's our president, and I hope he's not, and you know, if you're a liberal, you probably hope he is. I hope he's not. But if he is, of course I'm going to be probably criticizing almost everything he does, but that's like a given. That's not the party I vote for. The party you vote for is the one you should be more beholden to criticizing because you should want the party you vote for to act in your best interest. That's why you vote. You know what I mean? It's not about voting for them. I say this all the time. People treat politics too much like sports. And then even then more so, they treat it more like a religious kind of a sport because there's this like dogma with people where like even your own local sports team that you love, you'll criticize stuff. You know what I mean? They fire a head coach you like, they get rid of a quarterback, you're like, oh fuck, I can't believe this. So even with sports teams, people are more critical of. But for some weird reason, with politics, it's like you combine the sports team propaganda and enthusiasm, where it's like it's your winning team and they must win. with this religious dogma of they can do no wrong. If I criticize them, that makes them look weak, so I can't even say anything critical. It's like, no, I voted for them, and they're supposed to be serving me and my best interests as an American. And if they're not, I'm going to say something. That's actually what America was founded on, by the way. America was literally founded. What was one of our greatest protests as a country? No taxation without representation. We did that. That's what Americans do. And we went to this country and established it and settled it for that reason. That's what happened. Europeans and Britons, they're like, fuck that old government. We want something that represents us. And if they don't represent us, we're supposed to be critical of it. So what do you think our founding fathers would have done if a government got in like this one that was clearly purchased and influenced by foreign countries at the expense of Americans? Well, truthfully, they would have been burning down the government institutes and starting over. That's really how that would have played out. So, of course we should criticize. Nowadays we're in a different time frame, and so it's important, I don't advocate for violence, but we have the internet now. Our voices can be heard more than ever. And truthfully, what we should do, we don't need a violent revolution, but the GOP needs a nonviolent, hostile takeover. And what it really needs is more young men rising up and taking positions of power in the political infrastructure when it comes to the GOP. That's what we need. That's how you affect change. That's what needs to happen. So, and truthfully, I hope the Democrats do the same. Both parties need this at this point. They've all lost their way. The liberal progressives turn off the moderate Democrats, and now you have the Republican Party turning off the far-right Republicans who don't want war and turning off the moderates who don't want war. So we need a complete system reboot in our American political system, truthfully. And that's why I'm critical of it. You think Trump's going to carpet bomb Iran tomorrow? Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe not carpet bomb. That would be pretty reckless because that would kill a lot of innocents most likely. But he's gonna bomb some targets for sure. And I know the B2's are typically they often do carpet bombs, I believe, but carpet bombing would be pretty intense unless it's all just military based targets. Then maybe. But yeah, I think bombs are likely this weekend. That's the main point of this. $11 billion. That's how much we on the food, or are you talking about the war? The war we've now spent what? I'll look it up real fast. Iran war tracker. There's APAC tracker for Congress, and now there's Iran war cost tracker. I think it's closing in on 20 billion now. Yeah, 19,303 million. So yeah, it's gonna be by tomorrow. It'll be over $20 billion. So yeah, that's what we've spent on it so far. We need the boomer generation to not vote, says John. Yeah, well, we need them out of our politics, more importantly. A lot of boomers will vote conservative. So if you're a conservative, that's not a bad thing. The boomers are the ones that'll toe the party line, too. So you stick the kind of candidate that you want, a James Fishback, Florida type candidate, and they'll vote for him, even if they're like, well, he's a far-right radical, but it's always the boomers that tell you got to toe the party line. You got to vote for the lesser of two evils. It's the young people that are fed up. I'm fed up. I won't vote conservative if they're not going to succeed and they're going to fail like this. So it's the under 40 crowd that the Republicans should be catering to. But instead, as always, with the most selfish, entitled generation of all time, it's all about the boomers. And that's what Trump is. He's the boomers' last gasp. Everything is being done to serve boomers. Boomers want this war. Boomers love Middle East wars. Boomers love us taking out Arabs. You got to kill those Arabs. The boomers like this. The boomers worship Israel instead of God, right? The boomers want housing prices to go up. The boomers like the stock market prices going up because their 401k's been invested in it for 40 fucking years. So when Trump says, oh, we're in the golden age, can't you see? The Dow Jones is up since I took office. The NASDAQ and the S&P, it's up since I took office. Don't you see? This Iran war was necessary. We had to take the fight to them. Don't you see? The housing market costs should go up because boomers own homes. And I want them to feel rich for the first time in their life. Don't you see? That it's all about boomers. And it's so stupid because boomers are going to be dead in 20 years. Who will be left? The generations now that have been ignored. And we're going to be radicalized from it, and we will change everything as a result. And my fondest hope is that we take power while boomers are still alive, so that not only they can suffer the consequences for their selfishness before they croak, but also so that they can see how things are supposed to be run. That's my fondest hope. Dig the stream, bro. Sub, says Matthew Ferguson. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And when you do, please make sure post notifications are turned on, because YouTube has changed the subscription notification method now. You really got to have post notifications turned on. Otherwise, you'll subscribe to the channel, and then once every like 30 days, you'll see like a past live stream of mine, but it won't really notify you anymore unless you turn on post notifications. Hey, Scruffy, welcome back, man. Considering it's young men who are falling for extremism. Oh, we're falling for it. Authoritarianism and abuse towards women flex as to how it is the fault of boomers. Abuse towards women? You mean we don't simp for pussy? Is that what you're saying? L. Aubrey? You mean we're not whipped for our women? She's a real pistol. My wife's a real pistol. She always disrespects me in public. I'm the one who I cook and I clean because I love women. Shut up. Authoritarianism? You mean law and order? You mean rules? You mean a clean and orderly society? Extremism? You mean conservative values? What a pathetic generation. Kingsman. Operation. It's not about the Epstein files. Hey, Lifeguard's here. Hello, Lifeguard. Scruffy says, yeah, that's why I like listening to you, despite being to the absolute opposite extreme. Oh, you're the opposite extreme of me. Okay, well, still, I appreciate that. Absolutely. It's weird how the opposite extremes sometimes wind up still becoming part of that horseshoe. You know, the horseshoe theory, Scruffy? It's kind of like that sometimes. Certain topics will create that horseshoe effect. Operation Warp Speed and Operation APAC Fury. Yes. Trump's biggest mistake, says Dial Up. I agree. Lifeguard says, I think the Democrat Party has truly gone too far for any self-reflection. Thank public education. That's probably true, but the politicians themselves, it's the voters that you have to talk about in that context of. But the politicians themselves will do anything to obtain power again, as will any politician. And so you're starting to see the Democrats figure it out a little bit when it comes to cost of living, economic populism, and more importantly right now, Israel and this Middle East war. So it's kind of like Trump is serving them the layup to take back power, in all honesty. It's like it's as much of a no-brainer for Democrats now as it ever will be. And I think there's some of them that are smart enough to figure that out. Gavin Newsom referred to Israel as an apartheid state the other day. So we got to watch that, you know. And I don't want Republicans to maintain that. I don't want them maintaining the House or the Senate in midterms. I've already been clear on that. I won't vote for them, but I want the Democrats to win in midterms because this Trump administration has forfeited its mandate and is no longer serving its voters. It's serving Israel and it's serving Trump. So this administration deserves failure. It deserves to be halted, and it deserves ultimately to be prosecuted. And we won't get that from conservatives. We will get that from Democrats. And what I hope, my fondest hope is that the Democrats take everything back in 26, Trump is halted, and then it's a wake-up call for the GOP, and we can finally get some good quality candidates that will step up and run in 2028. So it's a Hail Mary, but you know, Trump was supposed to be our Hail Mary, and we threw the pass to him, and he caught it, and he's refusing to score the touchdown on our behalf. So I'm done with him. Brad says, 2009, I agree, but I think it's both parties. They both act the same with each other. You know, they don't, but they do. And I know what you're saying. So, Jeffrey, we could have voted for frazzled Ukraine's place. People forget so fast. American advocates, they say oil can't get out and food can't go in. Those Iranians are going to starve themselves. It's their problem, Eddie. I mean, honestly. I know we struck them first, but they got to solve their own problems. Both parties are not leading us into a war and down the path to fascism. Yes, fascism does seem to be the path that this country is heading towards. That does seem to be true. You ever have an original thought, or do you just repeat what Trump poops in your mouth? Are you talking to me? I'm literally like pretty much against Trump overall. A curious press media would help with a system reboot. A curious press. Well, the press is just so bought and paid for that we're never going to get that. You'll get independent people like me and other very large media sources sort of doing that. But then you go too large on YouTube, and it once again turns into toe the party liners. MAGA cheerleaders, and then Democrats who are obviously biased against Trump in every way. So you go too far up the ladder, and it seems like a lot of channels, they kind of like sell out. So Brad agreed, but the Democrat Party sticks together 1,000%. That's true. There's a dissent within a political party. It's always Republicans. That's true. Hey, yeah, Democrats will only eat their own when absolutely necessary, and they try to avoid it. And they're much more loyal to each other, collectively speaking, at least. Republicans will turn on each other in an instant, and all it takes is for Democrats to levy allegations, even if they're unproven. And we've seen that all the time. We should have Jim Jordan right now instead of John Thune, in all honesty, or Jim Jordan instead of Mike Johnson. I mean, we should have much stronger conservatives leading the way, but we don't because the Democrats know that the conservatives are Nancy's about that stuff, and so all you have to do is just accuse them of shit, or give them hell and try to sabotage their reputation, and the Republicans will eat it up. We saw it with Matt Gaetz as well. Matt Gaetz should be our attorney general instead of do nothing bitch Pam Bondi. But all they had to do was say, well, Matt Gaetz might have done something with a underage girl in Florida, and it's like, if he did, that's bad, and we should force him out as attorney general. But we don't know that he did. But right away, Republicans are like, "Oh, we can't have anything to do with Matt Gaetz. It's going to have to be Pam Bondi." Well, look where we're at now. Hey, when it gets up in the market and they should turn it off at the end of the day, maybe they should just leave it off for a while and let it chill. I don't know what you're referencing. You think that Iran is not going to retaliate against the U.S.? I'm either Iran will. I already said this. You probably joined late, but what I'm predicting essentially is we pull out now. Bibi Netanyahu's given Trump the somewhat permission to pull out now, it seems, and Trump is launching the B-2 bombers because Trump will want to go big, so that it doesn't look weak, right? If we pull out like right now, it kind of looks weak. So Trump's got B-2 bombers in the sky, it seems. The Pentagon, Pete Hegseth. So the B-2 bombers will bomb Iran, devastating fashion. Trump will claim total annihilation and complete victory. Then we can pull out and save with the optics of it looking like we annihilated them. And then conversely, we have 2,500 Marines being sent there now to lock down the Strait of Hormuz. So we have to stay involved no matter what at this point now. And that'll be good enough for now. Then next year after midterms, Bibi Netanyahu will come back and he'll tell Trump, we got to go back in, especially if Mojtaba Khamenei still survives. The new regime will be more radicalized, essentially. So 2027 will likely go back, and we'll either go back at the behest of Israel and Bibi, or we'll try to refuse to, and a false flag event will be staged where we're attacked on our soil again. It'll appear to be from Iran, and that will, of course, galvanize Congress, no matter how blue or red at the time, to go to war and back up Trump on war in Iran, and so back in we'll go. Or Iran will figure out a way to attack us genuinely on our soil too. And the sad reality is, false flag or actual attack, we won't know if it happens. We'll just know it happened domestically. Now we're in a full-fledged war with Iran, and that could be very likely in 2027 or 2028. Boomers will cost our economy a ridiculous amount in healthcare, Social Security, etc. They're a complete drag on our society, boomers. They really are. We should just strip them of Social Security. I'm of the belief we should just dismantle Social Security right now and take it all away. The boomers always love to talk about how they worked so hard for what they had. They can all go back to work. Especially, like, if you're a boomer and you're poor, you're an idiot, in all honesty. Like, if you're a boomer and you're literally poor, you're fucking stupid. You could buy your house for 18 grand and a car for 9 grand. How the fuck are you poor? Oh, I need my entitlements, though. I can't live. I'll starve to death. I'll starve to death if I have to pay, if I don't have Medicare and Social Security. What the fuck were you doing with your life? Do you know how rich I would be if I had boomer prices? And then they're like, well, you don't understand. We earned less per hour. It's like, no, you don't understand. Yes, that's true. But proportionately, your wages compared to the cost of living were so much higher than what we're dealing with now. No, you just need to not spend $4 a day on coffee like I did. Don't you understand? I was able to save $350 every 2 weeks, and then I was able within 2 years to buy an entire house outright. That's what you need to do. It's unreal. It is so unreal how delusional boomers are. But we should just take away Social Security. It is a complete drag on our national debt and on our cost of living, on our society in general. And it's unsustainable. It's going to have to be dismantled at some point in time anyway. There's not enough of a worker to retiree ratio to maintain it. When Social Security first took effect in the late 1930s and in the 1940s, there was on average 43 workers per one retiree. That number has dwindled now to around 2, and it's going to sink to under 2. It's going to be at 1.5, I think, soon. It's unsustainable. We got to get rid of it now anyway. And so we should just strip them of it. They don't deserve it. They're selfish and gross. They don't deserve their Social Security. Oh, I paid into it. Well, you can make the sacrifice now. Otherwise, we're going to have to. So it's coming. It's impending doom, Social Security. 12 billion per week so far. Yeah, for the war you're talking about? Yes. We're at 19 billion 311 million. It's already gone up. That's crazy. It's already gone up $20 million since I last said that. My boomer family is the best. They worked hard and saved their money, says D-Man. Dude, are you on? No, I'm not on welfare at all. I own 2 businesses. I believe in equal rights and lefts for women, says Turbo Christ. Uh-oh, don't say that. You should never hit a woman. If a woman pulls a gun on you, you should let her shoot you. How dare you say you would ever hit a woman? They're precious, sacred goddesses. Just ask any boomer. The key to getting more sex, by the way, is to just give women everything they want. Lifeguard, you're late. Yeah, that's true. Lifeguard is late today. He missed all the good stuff. He missed my actual analysis. Now I'm just trolling. How conservative are you talking like Ayatollah? There are limits to authoritarianism that you don't want to cross. It'll get crossed anyway. It's inevitable at this point. Trump was the last chance to stop everything from moving in that direction, and he's failed. Yes, on Jim Jordan, absolutely. Yep, and Matt Gaetz, yeah. I know it's scandalous with Matt Gaetz, but it's not proven. It's so stupid that it wasn't proven. You know what I mean? What's the worst case scenario? He's the attorney general, and he has to stand down then because of the scandal. Oh, so scandalous. Instead, now we have the do nothing bitch Pam Bondi, and it's a worse scandal. The Epstein files aren't getting released. It's so crazy. It was a scandal either way. I would have rather have had Matt Gaetz and run the risk of him actually being proven to have been involved in the Florida State scandal with the hooker. I mean, give me a break. And she was 17. She was 17. This was not like some Epstein sicko shit, like some potential 9-year-old. She was 17. It's legal in a lot of states. It's just not legal in Florida, okay? I think it's gross. 17 is too young, The last time I thought a 17-year-old was attractive, I was in high school myself, obviously. The older you get, the more you see the difference. It's it is gross, but, come on now. It might not even have been true. We should have given Matt Gaetz a chance. If it turns out to be true, he must resign. It's a scandal. The alternative, Pam Bondi, a scandal. She's scandalous. We got the scandal either way, and now we're getting nothing. With Matt Gaetz, we would have got something. Host has Israel and Trump derangement syndrome. I sure the fuck do. The B2's have the rocket's red glare. Oh, yeah, okay. So many conspiracies. I'm out. Okay, well, farewell. Just goodbye. Conspiracies. Conspiracies, because those have all turned out to be false over the past 10 years. Every single conspiracy out there has just been as wacky as we thought it was. Farewell, D-Man, you fucking ignoramus. Go eat up your boomer slop right out of the Fox News trough, you swine. Doug Mart says, we know because we haven't had a six related terrorist attacks in the United States over the last 5 days. Safari says, only stupid trumpet could make Iran a superpower. Iran's not going to be a superpower. Israel will be. We're serving Israel's interest in becoming a superpower, and it's not wise, by the way. We should literally ensure that no other country rises up as a superpower, even if they're our ally now. It's literally folly. Friends today, enemies tomorrow. It's honestly mind-boggling. Hey, Beck fans here. I'm winding down now, Beck fan. You probably missed all the good stuff, but I appreciate it. Yes, defund single moms. I agree. Make them more reliant and dependent on men like they should be. They're dependent on men either way, which is the irony of single moms. It's like they get pregnant. I don't need no man. And then they take government handouts. And it's like, who runs the government? Men. Where's the money coming from? Predominantly men. It's wild. What's up with Hegseth spending $9 million on steak and lobster, says Huey. There's no problem with that. I have no issue with that. The problem is what that means, which is boots on the ground. Did Bibi really flee to Germany? We're not sure. Bibi's definitely in hiding right now, though. Without a doubt. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me. Just wanted to come on here to lay out my predictions. What we'll see over the weekend, like I said, if you missed it, go back and watch it. I think very likely we'll see some heavy military action in Iran. Trump will claim complete annihilation and victory, and that's going to be how we start to pull back from this tragic, ridiculous war. And then, of course, we got the Marines, like I said, heading to Iran. So boots on the ground is still imminent, but there's going to be a significant pullback from the war. Probably it might conclude this weekend with the strikes and the bombing at least. But go back, check out my assessment. Let me know what you think. This will save as a video on my channel. You can leave a comment on that video. If it's worth my time, I'll respond to it, especially if it's something you wanted to say in the chat that I didn't see. But thanks to everybody for watching. Enjoy your weekend. If something significant happens, I'll actually go live tomorrow and Sunday regardless. But if something significant happens, I'll try to go live as soon as I can after it takes place. So be on the lookout for that. Pay attention to the news. And if you see something crazy happen, then be ready for an impromptu American Advocates live stream. Either way, I appreciate all my viewers, guys. You guys are all losers for tuning in to a political stream at midnight, Friday night, Saturday morning. You guys are all losers, but I appreciate you guys being losers. So have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you guys tomorrow in some way, shape, or form. Maybe to talk about the juicy Freedom Dorito bombings if they occur. But if not, then we'll discuss something else. Have a great rest of your evening. Glory to America. God bless the USA, and God bless all of you. Another classic stream for the Archive Lifeguard. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I'll see you guys tomorrow.